San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, so this is our lowest grade of the offseason. I'll tease that out before we get started. We mentioned that a little bit earlier. Look, in free agency, again, a team that wasn't going to be able to do a ton. They did. Credit to them, making a strength a bigger strength. We just mentioned Robert Saleh with New York, his former team going out and adding Javon Hargrave to this interior. Look, they got bullied against Philadelphia up the middle. If it wasn't, Eric Armstead, they were just running right at Javon Kinlaw, right at whoever was there. And obviously Hargrave is more of a pass rusher, but, is a 3-down player on the interior. So their defensive line should still be nasty. My issue with their free agency is I commend them for not chasing Michael McGlinchey at that price, but their right tackle situation is now like Colton McKivitz and a recent draft pick whose name's now escaping me. Like, they've had some NFL experience. They've graded in like the 40s and 50s. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan has rotated some players in and protects them in his system, and those guys end up doing very well. So maybe he thinks he can do that again. But yeah, and the draft obviously didn't have a lot of draft capital and spent a 3rd-round pick on a kicker in Michigan's Jake Moody. So that obviously did not go over super well in the PFF offices.
Yeah, and not even just the right tackle spot. When you look along that offensive line, okay, Kyle Shanahan's system is offensive line friendly. They tend to look good within his offense, but that line has the ability to unspool pretty quickly. Like, that thing could go south in a hurry and be a problem. And it's something nobody's really talking about. I did it earlier, right? We talk about the 49ers as being kind of unquestioned NFC contenders, even with the quarterback situation being up in the air. We expect them to be the closest competitors to the Eagles. But like, it would take an injury, maybe one. It might not even take that. This offensive line could just, everybody hits the low end of their range of outcomes, and all of a sudden we're talking about one of the lower performing groups in the NFL. The Mike McGlinchey thing, letting him walk, is a risk. I agree with you. It was a number they should have walked away from, but you have to sort of at least have eyes on what that could mean if it goes south. Their moves generally in the offseason, Javon Hargrave was the big flag move, the big gaudy addition, but Cleveland Ferrell, despite his career so far, is an okay player. Like, he didn't justify number 4 overall, but as a free agent addition for not much money, great move. Sam Darnold could end up starting for them, and in Kyle Shanahan's offense, you would expect him to perform pretty well. So their free agency, I think, was solid enough. It's the draft that's the problem. And we did not like this draft at all. They reached, relative to the consensus board, let alone the PFF big board, at almost every single position. A kicker in the 3rd round when you actually had needs that you needed to address. This just felt like just a bad draft. It really did.
That's the thing, like you mentioned, like, you could have added a guard that honestly could have maybe had a legitimate impact on 2023. You probably could have added a defensive back. They did get Jair Brown, who I think is a solid player out of Penn State. But you could have added a corner potentially in this range. Obviously, it was a deep class. I'm sure Cameron Latu's consensus number was low. I think he's a solid player at Alabama. But yeah, like, it's just they kind of viewed it as, it's all luxury, who cares? And it's like, no, you actually have some holes on this roster.
Right. They were an intriguing team because they had that run of 3 picks in 4 at the end of the 3rd round, where you're still in the range where you can add players that have real impacts. And instead they just didn't. So the 49ers end up with a C, the single lowest grade we gave out this offseason. A B+ for their free agency and a C- for their draft, which I assume is also the worst grade we gave out for the draft. Not an offseason we loved.